It is HPR and All Things Considered. I'm Dave Lawrence. Today we are welcoming back a fantastic guest who was last with us when he was in town just a few years ago. And as you know, the touring scene has been heavily impacted by the pandemic, and we've been speaking with a lot of artists remotely, hearing how they've been doing during this, hearing how it's affected them, and certainly hearing how it's touched them. And today we continue that with a monster guitarist who has just turned his love and passion for the Beatles into something relaxing, sometimes ferocious. It's a new record called Across the Universe from the great Al Di Meola, and we're thrilled to have him back on the show to share how he's been spending time during this crisis, learn about this fantastic new project, and much more as we welcome Al Di Meola back to All Things Considered now.
Hi.
How you doing, brother?
All right.
Sending you a big,
World away.
I
You're
know, sending you a big aloha and a safe 6 foot away high five.
aloha to you too, man. It's great to be talking to you again. I
Yes,
know it's a different point in time, and truly like the most incredible thing we could have ever encountered. No one ever thought anything of this scale,
no
and
question.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot of musicians are sitting wondering what we're going to do for the next year.
Before we get into the record, let's talk about that. Fill us in on where you've been, I guess. Let's start there during the pandemic. And on a personal note, just thinking about it and reflecting how you have been touched by all that you've seen, heard, and felt during this.
Well, just periodic moments of crying, but other than that, I've been I've been held up in my house here, which I have a luckily I have a lot of space, or else I would have gone crazy. But I have a studio in my home, so I was able to come down here and do some writing at the same time, and a lot of practicing. But what's strange about it this time is I have no set time to prepare for something, so it's just kind of casual as opposed to, it's like the first time I've been without pressure.
Right.
I wake up every day not having to do anything. It's amazing. It's almost like being retired, completely retired, you know. But on one hand, it was great because I have a 4 year old now, and I get to see this one of my three daughters grow up. You know, I'm not missing a day,
Right.
and that part is incredible. Uh, so there's some upshots that are quite different than the other side, which is the fear of not working for a long time. I've never had that before.
No question. And that's an interesting perspective and great that you've been able to have that time be positive in terms of bonding with. Is that Ava? Am I pronouncing it right?
Ava, yeah, Ava,
And
yeah.
that's huge. That and the house. I'm assuming is that Jersey that you're in.
I'm in New Jersey, northeast New Jersey, almost near the New York line. It's actually quite nice here this time of year. So, uh, yeah, that's it's been strange though. There's been a lot of different kinds of weather that I don't remember any other year. Like there's been a lot of wind, heavy wind, like almost every day. And I wonder if there was a correlation between that and this virus that spread here all over here really bad in New Jersey. New
Right.
Jersey and New York got slammed the most.
Totally, totally. When it kicked in, did you have dates that had to be adjusted? Obviously, the record has come out during that, which we're going to talk about a bunch in a moment. But had you had any tour dates that got blown out, or where were you when everything began to get locked down?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I was let's see, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the year, we heard little bits and pieces about this thing in China. It wasn't really a big deal. And then I think at the end of January or somewhere around the beginning of February, I had some shows. I had a week in Japan. I had, and then following after that, I had a week, a little more than a week in California, and then ending in Arizona. So my keyboard player had heard about 3,000 people who had died in China, and he got really nervous. I said, well, I said to him, I said, well, China is not Japan. That's a whole different area. He said, yeah, but I don't want to take the risk, so I'm not gonna. I really can't go. I said, no. I said, you have to go. You can't just bow out a week before, you know. So they got to do a little bit of a thing, and then he wound up going. And Japan was kind of like it was before. There's always people walking around Japan with the mask. So, but we were hearing more and more about it. In the airports, you can really see like almost everybody now over there at the airports wearing the masks. So then we get to California, it wasn't yet a thing there. You know, after California, after that tour, I went to my place in Florida. I have a place in Miami Beach,
Okay.
and I noticed on the beach, like within a week of being there. So this is now like the end of February.
Okay.
I noticed that every one of the entrances to the build from the building to the beach had a table with three people at the table and a giant jug. And I because I was jogging on the beach every day and I saw that and I go, that is strange. What are they serving? Kool-Aid? I mean, what like a lemonade? What is that? And what it was soap water.
Wow.
And you had to fill out a form, that you've washed your hands before going from the beach in or vice versa. And so it was starting to really pick up there. Then I went back to New Jersey for my rehearsals for a tour that was going to take place the end of March into April in the Northeast, which was about a 2-week tour. And the one guy that made it here from Spain was my keyboard player. The others were to follow like 2 or 3 days later, and that's when the band, the flight ban, took into effect, and they couldn't make it here. The rest of the band. So I had my keyboard player here for almost 2.5 months because he couldn't get back. There were no flights, and then when flights were available, they were completely booked. So that was that one tour. So that got moved to September, which is up in the air,
Of course.
because this viral thing is exploding in 19 states right now, and they're all talking about a second wave, and promoters are nervous, and basically we're not hearing much about the shows in September. I mean, we have the dates booked, they're just moved. And then I have Europe in October and November, which again, we're not hearing anything about them, even though the situation in Europe is seemingly better, much better, especially in Germany and Austria and Switzerland. Of course, their healthcare system is supreme,
Right.
but still, we're not sure about October and November. It's likely that they're all going to be moved to next year. And they're talking about not the beginning of the year, but the middle to end. So I'm looking at the possibility of a whole year of being off, which is I have to choose which new languages to learn. My wife's from Germany, so that might be one of them.
That's good. Well, you've got a good attitude, and I can see how tentative everything. After talking to a lot of other folks, they all basically have a similar story in terms of the uncertainty of if the postponed dates will happen at all. Now, do you go out of your house or do you stay in there all the time?
In all the time. I
In,
would say I ventured out only to maybe a store once or twice. I took my keyboard player finally to the airport after 2.5 months staying here, and I took him to JFK, and there was nobody at the airport. And this is, one of the biggest airports in the world.
right.
I didn't see any cars, buses, any people. It was deserted. And then after that, my wife and my daughter were with me, and we feel rather safe in the car. So we ventured into New York City just to see what the vibe was like, and it was dead. And this is before the riots. A lot of things were boarded up even before that.
Right.
So it just felt really strange. Hardly anybody out. It's really two giant episodes happening in our lives that are frightening, and I wouldn't say I'm taking it well. I'm really kind of not taking it well. I'm very worried, rightfully.
Oh, well, of course, this is a very frightening time, and there's nothing wrong with saying that candidly. I think a lot of people hearing this will completely relate, feel the same, and it's strange. I mean, I go to leave the apartment every morning. Last thing you do is you put on the mask before you head into the station. It's a bit surreal to do something like that.
Yeah, I went to the Dairy Queen last night, an ice cream place with my daughter. That's one thing I did. I ventured out last night. It's very strange, you know.
You wear a
You
mask?
have to. Oh, of course, we wore a mask. My daughter wore a mask. Everybody there had a mask, except for maybe one or two people. But it's just bizarre because basically eat your ice cream there. You have to take your mask off.
Right.
It's you can't be totally secure with this thing.
Right.
You know.
No, that's a great point. You got to send me a pic of you sporting the mask or post it on your Facebook. I'd love to see that.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
it's touching. And finally, before we turn to the record, in terms of any of those musicians we've lost, because your career has been around for so long, you've touched so many people's lives, both with your playing, which is its own kind of way of touching people, the musicianship that you offer, but then also the tunes that you've done, the different associations through the years. So I'm thinking of, and none of these cats could have been someone that affected you, but Ellis Marsalis, like the Marsalis Kids Pop, John Prine, that guy from Fountains of Wayne, Adam Schlesinger, the great Manu Dibango who did Soul Makossa. Any of them artists that had touched you? We lost them all during the virus.
Um, I was sad to hear about all of them. I mean, I'm very aware of Mano Dibango and Ellis Marsalis. Yeah, I mean, it's moving because there was that period where you heard about someone almost every day.
Right.
And I also lost two or three friends. One of them being my first guitar teacher, who remained a very good friend of mine. In fact, his family we're still very, very close actually. And yeah, he got it. He was in the hospital for something else and then caught it
Ugh.
from most likely a nurse or something. And you know, there's maybe five people at the funeral. Not to sound very down right now, but they only allowed about five people at the burial. There was no funeral home thing,
Right.
and we stood very far apart. You couldn't hug anyone, so it's miserable.
What's his name?
The whole Bob Islanian. Bob Islanian was a phenomenal teacher that I had from the age of 9. So I had quite a lot of lessons from him, between 9 and I don't know, 11, 12, I'm not sure. And, he was more of an old school jazz guy, it just happened to be the teacher that was appointed to me when I went into that little music shop, in my downtown area of my hometown. And, I love the music of the early 60s through the 60s. I was a Ventures fan, Beatles, Birds, you name it, Rolling Stones. And then at the same time, he was teaching me, jazz standards and chord variations and scales and reading and picking techniques. And, so I got the best of both worlds.
Right.
And it was a tremendous place to grow up because I had New York City very, within a half an hour away. So, during my school years when I was old enough, we went into the city and saw a lot of great shows and provided a lot of inspiration. So it was a great place on the planet to be at that point.
Well, that's when you describe the things he taught you. That's a great lead into this record, actually, because the album, Across the Universe, it's called, came out in mid-March. And when you think about the way that you just described your love for the 60s rock and pop that was happening at that moment, and then being taught by this cat who had the more jazz background with the musical composition and what that might bring, and then you think of this record, it's kind of a merge of both of those. Talk a little bit about putting this thing together.
Okay, well, this is the second one that I've done. The first one has to be about 8 years ago. And I was on tour in Europe and going through kind of a difficult time in my life. But, I just had to think of something to do on my days off during the tour in Europe. And since my musicians that played with me in that particular band at that time lived in Europe, they would go home on those days if we had a 3-day break or whatever. And and I was, I was stuck in a hotel, thinking what I'm going to do. So this was something that was in the back of my mind for a long time, to someday get to a point where I can lend my own kind of style to some of the classics of pieces that I still love and listen to quite often. So of the Beatles. And so I was looking for studios in the area that I was in, which was at that time Prague, which I couldn't find anything decent enough. And then I thought of Germany, and then it just dawned on me, wow, what about Abbey Road? And
Right.
wouldn't that be cool? And so I made that happen. I found a friend in London who sussed it out for me, and he called me back and said, "Man, they're open. They got one day open.
Right.
The rest of the time they're doing mostly soundtracks and commercials. Not a lot of bands can afford that anymore. The days of big record budgets are over.
Sure.
So this was kind of a present to myself, where I was going to take my own money and just not wait for a record deal and just make a record at Abbey Road. And of course, that one day turned into 3 days. I got three tracks done. I was in total heaven at the time, because it really felt like I was a 5-year-old experiencing Disney World for the first time.
Sure.
It was that kind of thrill that you don't get as an adult. I got it again, and the whole time was just magic. It was the same place they recorded those classics, same floor, same walls, same equipment, largely. And so then I went back to the States with the intention of finishing it. And I couldn't match the sound, whether it would be in my studio or in New York City. So I figured, well, I better go back, because I already set the bar so high. But before I went back, I decided to rent a house, get away, so I could just focus on arranging pieces like Penny Lane and other ones, that I Am the Walrus, pieces like that. And I just wanted to get away from the traffic. So
This is the Long Island
I
story.
it's the long yeah, you heard about this
I
one?
love it. It's great. Keep going. I love it.
Yeah, so I'm in a restaurant. I'm looking through a paper, for listings, and it was right before Labor Day, and really there wasn't much available unless it was like $1 zillion on the beach. So I found this one little ad at the very bottom of the paper. Called the guy up, and the guy says, "Look, I normally don't rent my house out, but I'm considering it this time, and if you need it for 4 or 5 days, maybe I could do it. I don't know who you are. You say you're a musician, but you sound like a nice guy." I said, "Well, thank you." He calls me back. He goes, "Look, I got to tell you something. I can give you the house, but you got to be cool, because your next door neighbor is kind of a famous pop guy." And I went, "Okay, that'll be cool. You might tell me who it is?" He goes, "Paul McCartney." And I just dropped my spoon in the soup, and I just, it was kind of like the bucket wish list.
Right.
It was the first one on the list, that I always wanted to meet Paul or Robert De Niro or something. So here I was, the next door neighbor for that period of time of Paul, right? Hoping that he'd be there. So I put in my GPS. Next day, I go out there, and there he is, right there in the driveway with his wife and some friends. And I got to meet him that night, and a couple of days after that. And I just, witnessed him pulling in and out of the driveway with his brown Rolls Royce, and he alternated between a brown Rolls Royce and a dark green Bronco, I remember. And I'm on the porch watching him pull in and out of the driveway, running in and out of the house, while I'm arranging Penny Lane and everything. And it's going, this is so surreal, man. Oh God. So we go 1 year later, and this is after going back to Abbey Road and everything, which I told him I was doing. And, I hope he didn't think I was a stalker. But a whole year later, I come back with my then girlfriend, who she's now my wife, and we had the finished CD, And she goes, "What? Why don't you go next door and give it to him?" I said, "No, I can't. I just, She goes, "I'll go." I said, "Really?" So she goes, "Yeah, write him a letter first." So I wrote him a letter. I forget what I said in it, but I stuck it in the CD. She went over. We see him pull in the driveway. She runs over and gives the CD to the person at the door. And I don't know. I don't even know if you got to hear it, but that was my first record. Then the second record was an important one to do, the new one, because this one I wanted to do with full production. I
Mm,
wanted to have the bass go on it. I want to have drums, percussion, all kinds of things, orchestra. Uh, and this was a much bigger project than the Abbey Road one. And Abbey Road, it was just with my acoustic guitar, and I really love the idea to do it that way at that point in time. Really a simplistic kind of, uh, Plus it wouldn't have been affordable to do a big production thing at Abbey Road anyway.
sure.
So this time I wanted to take my time and really just kind of, hone this one and include all of the elements and overdubs and things of that nature that I hope to do on the first one, that I got to do on the second one. Of course, with all different songs though. You know.
One of the really fun ones on there. It looks like it includes multiple Meolas, like quite comically, daughter Ava singing "Octopus's Garden." Talk a little bit about that one.
Well, that was never planned. That was just we were in the car, and I think she had headphones on. She was listening to the actual version of Octopus Garden and singing along with it. And so oh, maybe it wasn't the headphones, but she was singing along with the track in the back seat. And I go, "Oh my God." I said, "I got to capture that." So I flipped on my voice memo on the iPhone, and I captured a lot of it. And surprising, a lot of it was like in key, you know. And that little bit after the first verse is she's actually humming the guitar solo, and I thought it was so cool. So I said to my engineer, we should just put a little bit at the end, just for just I think it's a cute thing to do.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, but you can't have any of the original music in there." I said, "Oh, nobody's going to care. You think the Beatles are going to care about that? You think Ringo is going to care?" Because absolutely. I said, "Oh my God." So we fought about that for about a month, and in the end, he won. So I just kind of put the music in,
Right.
after that, with my daughter's voice still there. Kind of covered it up.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's such a cool. And the other Meola, is that your
Middle daughter,
middle?
middle daughter, Valentina,
Yeah, Valentina.
and she was she sang this kind of introduction part that happens also in the middle of the piece, and she was a little disappointed because she wanted to sing the whole song. I said, "No, yeah." I said, "Valentina, you don't get the point of this. It's really just it's not supposed to feature singing. This is a guitar album. So in the end, she was always a little disappointed about it. But I said, "You sound great. It's just a cool thing to do it that way. Maybe someday she'll realize that.
Oh yeah.
Who knows?"
Oh, totally.
I
No.
was hoping to have her on a lot more of the record, but not in a feature way, because you can't outdo the Beatles.
Right. Well, I like the way you've kind of done it in that way. It's mostly that's the instrumentals. You have that little bit of a touch here and there. And the other thing is, for fans of yours who remember your fiery timbali performances on stage through the years, you play some other stuff besides guitar throughout this. Yeah.
Yeah, I love playing
I
percussion
know.
a whole lot. So, I do that on almost all my records. I do the percussion stuff. Um, I'm not so much of a drummer, although I did play, a lot of snare and tom toms, and I used a cajon for the bass drum on some pieces. Uh, and there was some times that I just felt like, the Ringo fill, the first few that happened on like a piece like Strawberry Fields, I just expect that to happen. So I said, why not just do it? You know, and it was a lot of fun. It was nostalgically fun.
Which is that guitar, the red one that's featured on the cover?
Oh, it's like an orange thing.
Yeah, orange. Sorry, looks reddish
That's a
orange.
Conde Hermanos Spanish nylon flamenco guitar.
It's a great photo. I love the colors and the way that you captured that.
So those photos were taken in Hamburg, which is where the record company resides, and it's also where the Beatles got their start.
Yeah, that's right.
In those clubs around that area of St. Pauli.
The Star Club.
And yeah, the Star Club. It was the Indra Club, Star Club, and there was a third club, the Kellersbach or something like that.
I love the connections back to them. It's so cool. That's what I loved about it. I remembered all the McCartney connection from Long Island and thought, wow, this is just this is great for you. And then to think that about the artwork, that it was filmed, that it was shot there, that's kind of gives you chills. What was the trickiest one to lay down, Al?
Oh, the trickiest one was I gotta look at them. I think it's the sixth track, the sixth one.
That would be Strawberry.
No, the one before it.
Mother Nature's Son.
That one. That one was brutal. I mean, I think when people listen to it, they don't think of it in terms of, wow, that sounds hard. But it was really hard because you had a lot of string skips and syncopations that made it, very challenging. That one would be brutal to pull off again. Yeah, it just is. But I love the way it came out, because it's just, I thought it was enough of originality that made it hip.
It's very original. It's like you completely make your own versions out of all of these, yet you bring people just enough of the original reference point to evoke that nostalgia in their minds. It's a great mix. And in the way you describe that guitar teacher, again, it just always brings me back to that description you provided earlier.
Like the first record was, there was more avant-garde moments where, people might not get it was Michelle, the song Michelle.
Right.
I could have just laid into the melody a little bit more. So there was intentional on this record to
stay closer,
come closer together, but still you can't get too close because then it's like, what's the point?
Right. No.
It's already been done phenomenally well by them. You can't beat that, So I had to do my thing, but also bring those melodies, which they ring through my head every day. Any moment I could sing the melodies of any one of their songs. It's just something about it, something that came full circle to me, back to me, because during the Beatle period in the 60s, it was just a magic time. And I thought all of it was great. And then when they went solo is when I ventured deeper into the area of jazz and jazz rock and progressive music. So it was a real obvious thing because I didn't care for the solo stuff so much. I was never a Wings fan or or any of the other guys so much. It was okay, but not great. And then, the last 10 years, I just went full circle back to it because all of the complex stuff that we've done in the jazz rock realm don't measure up in terms of how it feels to the heart. What they did really goes to the center of the heart and makes me smile, and we were getting more and more. Now I say we, almost all of us were doing things that were so complex that it became more and more musicians' music. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, away from the heart. And I love that. It makes you I love that description. It makes you smile and it makes you feel good when you,
I can name songs and you will smile, like The Ticket to Ride.
Right. Totally.
Paperback Rider, Day Tripper.
Come together.
It's come together. Yeah. It just goes on and on and on.
You can't go wrong with that stuff, is what you're saying. I mean, it's just
no. And you listen to it now; it's fresh. It's phenomenal.
No, it's it's totally. Do you have a guitar near you?
I kind of do.
You want to grab it and maybe make a little aloha happen for Hawaii?
A little taste.
I love it. I love it. It's so beautiful, Al. I'll give you a huge, a socially distanced hug and high five for letting us taste that.
Yeah, these are like. See, what made these pieces interesting for me was incorporating the melody within the chord. So it's called, in jazz terms, it's chord melody. Little taste.
I love it, brother. I'm so appreciative. You're such a kind man to be doing that, man. And I just love talking to you. It's so easy. I don't know if it's because I grew up in Delaware and you're from Jersey or what, but whenever we talk, it's it isn't always so easy. So I appreciate that about you, cuz you've kept it real. You want to give a plug for this? When you had your keyboardist here, did you keep him in your house the whole time, or where did you do that Tears of Hope? I saw you've been working on a tune during the pandemic. I thought that was kind of a trip to
Yeah,
hear.
Tears of Hope was written here in my studio, and he was staying with me. And yeah, that was actually a nice time to really hone some music. So yeah, we did 3 of those streams, and I intend to do some more, maybe in a more concert way, and also instruction too, since we're gonna have so much time
Right.
off.
That's what I mean. There's a lot of ways you could tap that. You just hit the nail on the head. Instruction, performances. I also saw on your Facebook you were asking folks yes or no as to the idea of a drive-in concert. When we talked about that before we got on the air, it's just wild to think about like what the future is going to hold for how it's going to come back together.
I heard like 75% of small venues are gonna go out of business. And I was, oh my God.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna offer some kind of thing, but it's gonna be usually a pay thing. Maybe I'm thinking of like a 5-part series, and they can choose between any one of the 5 parts, or subscribe to the whole 5. And it could involve like you know answers to a ton of questions that they've already asked. I don't know if you saw that, but we put it out there and said, what questions would you have for me?
Yeah, I saw it.
And I can get into like lengthy discussions about stuff, and also show examples and play some new music, maybe play stuff from the new album. And I think it can keep people engaged, and why not?
And virtual lessons, you mentioned it. I think you could do a whole series of them. If you've got this much time off, you could do that. People could sign
Right.
up. You can give them one-on-one lessons, make a little jingle. I mean, you're going to need alternate revenue, and that's a great way to do it because you've got the technology, you've got the skills,
Yeah.
and it'll be fun for you too, I bet, in some ways, It'll certainly be
Well, we
safe.
we have to test it out. I know that when we did the live streams, we had, one time we had almost 300,000 people around the world,
Unreal.
and it was mind blowing. The second time we had a little less, it was in 100,000 plus, and then the third time was like 90,000. But if we got even 1% of that would like to do this type of thing, it's still a lot of people and a lot of income, which is interesting because I won't have any shows for a year. So.
And that's the thing. A lot of people, when they think of the economic crisis that has come, as we've talked with many different artists and these venues, as you and I were talking before we went on, a lot of these venues hit very hard. Some of them, like a lot of restaurants, may never open again. So when it comes to you guys, you're touring in the new digital world. The touring has been so critical to your survival for many musicians because
Yeah.
the way that the record industry had collapsed, the touring becomes not only a place where you make revenue off of the ticket sales, but you can also get the merchandise into people's hands, correct?
Yeah. So the new record store of the last 10 years has been at the
Yeah,
shows.
exactly. Right.
That's where you sell product.
Yep.
The vast majority product. It's not iTunes, it's not Amazon, it's the shows, and that's gone.
Yeah.
So doing this, we can promote the record by me playing some of it and talking about it, and maybe it would drum up some curiosity with some people that don't know about it. So it'll all help if we can pull this off. It'll be the new model, let's say, for what we all have to do. Especially guys that have a name.
You got to adapt, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, as we go to wrap it up, a final thought: have you gotten any feedback from Sir Paul or from the Ringo camp on this fabulous new record that you've dropped?
I have not. I two realms of thought. One being, I can imagine this guy gets, 1,000 records a day of his own stuff, and there's no way he's going to be able to hear it all. But what's surprising is, I know that he knows of me and what I've done, because he told my engineer when they met in New York. This is after my stint out in the Hamptons when I was the next door neighbor. Because when I had met him out there, I didn't really talk about me at all, not really, and I don't know if he totally got it anyway. Uh, but he was very nice. So I found out maybe a year after that he goes, oh yeah, yeah. He asked my engineer what he was working on. He said, I'm working on Aldi Meola. Oh, I know how. Oh my God, yeah. So when my engineer told me that, I was, oh shit. Okay, that's good to know that he knows, because I wasn't sure. But what's changed though, for the positive, is that my agent now is also his agent,
Oh wow.
and my agent, I just switched back to him. Started in the business in 1980, and I was his first act.
Wow.
Myself, John McLaughlin, the Paco de Lucia, the guitar
Wow.
trio.
Yeah, yeah.
So now Barry Marshall, that's his name, of Marshall Arts, which is the name of the booking agency, is based in London, and they've been handling Paul exclusively all over the world since 1987. So, and also they have Pink and Elton John, and they had George Michael one time, a lot, Tina Turner. They had Cher, and so now I'm on the roster with all of these arena acts. So I think at some point I'll get to I'll get the proper introduction to Paul. You know what I mean, from somebody. Hopefully, before it's too late, because you don't know how long this is going to last. You know, I don't know if you saw that thing on TV with the virus charity with Paul.
I know one of those benefit events that they did.
The one with Elton John,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I didn't see it, but I know about it.
oh, check it out on YouTube. It's funny.
I
It's
will.
not really funny. It's actually a little sad because it's without, it's the bare bones. So he had no backing at all. And he did this piece, Lady Madonna, that you will not recognize. There was, the famous, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom,
yeah.
boom, do, 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 do. It was gone. And he was doing it like a gospel piece. And it was so bizarre. Anyway, I just hope he doesn't lose his voice completely, because I know he's worn out a lot of it, but he is an inspiration because he won't stop. He just wants to keep going, you know.
Oh, it's huge. That's huge. And nothing from
Yeah.
the Ringo camp.
Nothing from the Ringo camp, although I know Steve Lucas is a friend of mine. He plays with Ringo,
Yeah.
and he heard the record. He loved it. It's going to be, I don't know. I think it would be hard to get them.
To react.
Yeah, because they probably view what they did as the best version, which it is,
Right.
what they've done. I don't know how it would happen, if it would ever happen, but I had to do this. This was a project of passion that I wanted to do.
It's a beautiful record. It's across the universe. Al's latest attempt at tackling a group that had a huge influence on him, and he's just shared some great stories today. It's called Across the Universe from the great Al Di Meola. It's out now and available for folks. Came out in mid-March, right as our country and our world fell into a very, very deep and uncertain crisis. And I hope that you had fun today. You've been very, very generous. It's always, I think I'm a huge fan of yours. I love talking to you. And
Thanks so much.
I'm rooting for a lot of success in the future for you, my brother.
Well, as well as I wish everyone well and to make it through this so that we can all return to doing what we do and seeing all of you again. My wife and I and our daughter Ava had a tremendous time in Honolulu this last time we played the Blue Note. So we hope to be back not too long of a time, so everybody stay well, and we'll talk again.
Send me that pic of you with the mask and stay safe, my brother. Seriously. God bless you.
You too. Take care now.
Aloha, Al. Take care, brother.
Aloha. Bye-bye.